Let's start with your filled out versions. You have here 4 or 3 versions of contracts. If you'll notice, one says all cash, one says split fund, and one says assumptions. When you're sitting in a seller's living room, should you know how to fill one of these out? If you don't, you probably just blowed the deal. Can you imagine sitting there and you say to the seller, wow, now we got a deal, now I'll just have to go find somebody to write it up. Ultimately, you're going to be able to fill this out in a matter of 3 or 4 minutes. I can fill this contractor out, folks, or this contract out, before you can get the screen warmed up on your computer. I'm not kidding. Before you can even get to the contract on your computer, I can have this filled out under almost any circumstances. So once you get to know this, you'll be able to do the same thing. You won't be reading the contract over and over. You'll just be filling in the blanks, and you'll know what goes in the blank. So whether you use this one or any other, get one that you're going to continually use, learn it, and it'll be very simple for you to fill it out. And it's the same with your realtor contract. If you're using the same one over and over, if here you're using this Florida FAR bar, it won't be long before you'll know what the Florida FAR bar says. This is it. I don't even have to sit here and read this. I can look at the heading on here to determine which paragraphs I even want to read. And there's nothing in this Florida FAR bar that worries me, incidentally. I haven't read it lately. I've read it previously. Let's see if it's assignable. It says assignable, paragraph 11, assignable, check, buyer may assign or may not assign. Okay? Elizabeth, you back there? She's out filling out a contract. You back there, Tony? We're not going to put anything there. Nothing. If we don't put anything there, it's assignable. Yes. If we check assignable, it raises red flags. Which gets us to the first line of our contract. Hold your questions. I'm going to answer them anyway. First line of our contract. It says buyer. Who's the buyer? You are. Should we put as trustee there? No, I wouldn't put as trustee there, because if you put as trustee there, that raises red flags. But you should put and or signs, right? No, you should not put and or signs. You say, well, golly, Ron, every course I've ever heard from every real estate guru in the world says put and or signs on your contracts. Well, go ahead and do it. See if it don't cost you a deal by year's end. Putting and or signs on your contracts will literally raise red flags, especially if you're dealing with institutionally owned properties. It says to them, seminar graduate, brand new, just got out of class, can't close, don't have no money, going to try to sell my contract before I close. And it'll cost you a deal. But let me ask you this. Why do you need and or signs on it anyway? If there's not a paragraph in the contract that says you cannot assign it, it's assignable.
We have that in Delaware in our...
Even if the contract says you can't assign it, why do you need it? If you're going to a closing and you're going to take title and 3 minutes later you're going to transfer it to your buyer, are you signing your contract? Huh? Then why do you need to worry about it?
I'd rather sign the contract and pay transfer tax.
Oh, you'd rather sign the contract than pay transfer tax?
3%, yeah.
Well, if you are going to deal with that, then you are going to have to put and or signs in it, or you're going to have to put as trustee on it so you can take title in the trust and just let them be the owner of the trust from day one. You don't even assign the trust. You can be the trustee of their trust and then resign if you need to. If I live in a state that had 3% transfer tax, I would deal with it too. Worst case scenario here, even in Florida, you pay $7 a thousand transfer tax to assign it to your new buyer. You know, these little cheap deals, that ain't much, and that ain't even enough to worry about. If that's a problem, what you need to do is just cross it out of your contract. I would rather you didn't do that, but in case of 3% transfer tax, I would do it too. Here, put in there, the contract's assignable. Who's the seller if you don't know their name? Owner of record. Owner of record. The address is the address, and it calls for the legal description. Which is more important, the address or the legal? How many say legal? How many say address? If I have a choice, I'll take the address, hands down. Because you see, I don't know what legal the property, I don't know what legal goes to that property, what property goes to that legal. But I know what property goes to the address. I want the address on my contract, no exceptions. The legal if it's available. Both would be nice, but the address is mandatory. No. Oh, with the legal? No, I ain't worried about it. Half the time I fill out a contract, the legal is not on it, but I put the address on it. It's up to your closing agent, by the way, who's issuing title policy to make sure your legal matches your address. How would you like to buy a house and bought the one that you didn't think you owned? You bought it because the legal was wrong. You see, the address is nowhere on your deed. Your deed is done by legal. You wouldn't be the first one that bought the wrong property.